Division with the International Labour Organization, ILO, and with the statistics departments of many different countries such as Canada and the United States to measure the economic impact that development brings to the gross domestic product of different countries as a way of advocating for the value, the added value of volunteerism. That's one example. In the area of community engagement, there's a lot of different activities going on worldwide to bring awareness to the Millennium Development Goals and the targets to be achieved by 2015, but also to engage people in the Millennium Development Goals and achieving those goals. One example happened in Egypt, where 8 different sailing boats, local sailing boats, the main sail of the sailing boat had one of the icons for the Millennium Development Goals. So there were 8 boats sailing down the Nile with different MDG icons, and they had different ports of call. At each port of call there was a group of volunteers supported by UNV, by UN volunteers, who had information stands, pamphlets, and dialogue with people who were coming to see these boats, which created quite a bit of interest, to talk about the Millennium Development Goals, but also to talk about how Egypt was doing in achieving the Millennium Development Goals for that country and what they could do to make a difference to achieving those goals. So that would be an example of community engagement. In the area of promotion, I hope that many of you are aware of International Volunteer Day, which is celebrated on the 5th of December worldwide. All over the world, UNV is supporting different community groups, different associations to celebrate volunteerism and volunteerism's contribution to peace and development on the 5th of December. 2001 was the International Year of the Volunteer, and it really did bring volunteerism onto the map and awareness for volunteerism. 2011 will be 10 years since 2001, and so we are working with different groups such as the International Federation of Red Cross and other groups to look at ways that 2011 can mark the 10 years and bring awareness again to the importance of volunteerism. In Europe, the EU has decided that 2011 will be the European Year of Volunteers. So we're hoping different regional groups will also look at ways of marking that year. UNV itself will be putting together for the first time a publication which will measure the state of volunteerism in different countries around the world. Since 1971, the numbers of UNV volunteers deployed with UN agencies has grown steadily and dramatically, from a few hundred to our current numbers, which are 7,750 UNV volunteers serving in 2008-2009. A lot of that growth has been the result of what we call special operations. That's providing pre-electoral support in countries. It's providing response after crisis to help build back communities and to encourage peace and reconciliation. So you might wonder, how does someone become a UNV volunteer? You can go on to our website, www.unvolunteers.org, and there you will find an application form. We are currently revising that application form to make it a little bit more user-friendly, but that's one way that you can register to be considered as a UN volunteer. In the United States, you can also work together with we work together with Peace Corps, so you can also request to be a Peace Corps and UNV volunteer, so you can go through the Peace Corps as well. And what happens is you go onto our roster, and then when UN organizations give us what we call a terms of reference, you may call it a job description. It's very much like looking for paid staff. It's a skill, it's a requirement that's needed by that UN organization. They give us the terms of reference. We then go through the roster to find matches, people who have the experience and the skills required by that UN organization. We give the organization several candidates that we've pre-screened, and then they select the candidate that they want to be a volunteer with that organization. You have to be at least 25 years old. You have to have the technical requirements of that job, just as if you were applying for a paid position. You know, if you're a wonderful chef, You might not work in an area that requires you to have nursing skills, right? So you have to have the skills relevant to the job. So we require that you are at least 25 years of age, that you have the technical skills, and you have at least 5 years experience, working experience in that field. And the reason for that is because what we say to UN agencies is not only does volunteerism contribute to peace and development, but we're going to give you qualified and experienced people who can hit the ground running, who can become part of your team immediately. So when you are a UNV volunteer and you're in a staff meeting or you're out in the field working, someone shouldn't be able to determine whether you're a paid staff or a volunteer staff. You're a member of the staff team. You're equally competent. Paid or unpaid, paid or volunteer, you are a member of the staff. So the responsibilities you bear are very important. Also, at the local level in country offices, there may be individuals who come to the attention of UNDP or a UN organization and they want to be a UNV volunteer. There is some local recruitment done, but that is fed through our rostering system so that we can make sure the quality assurance is there. So who are UNV volunteers? As I mentioned a few minutes ago, 37 years of age is the average age of a UNV, so you have to be at least 25, but the average age is 37. We don't have an upper age. There isn't a certain, like in the UN, when you're a staff member at 62 or 60, depending on when you join the UN, that's it, mandatory retirement. Then you can become a UNV volunteer because we don't have an upper age limit. The only restriction that may happen is because we do provide health insurance for UNV volunteers. The insurance carrier, depending on your medical situation, may at a certain age say they're not willing to provide you with insurance. So if you don't have your own, then that might be a barrier, but there is not an age limit. As I said, you have to have at least 5 years working experience. The average for a UNV volunteer tends to be somewhere between 5 and 10 years of experience. Over 159 nationalities are represented by our currently serving UNV volunteers, and over 100 professional categories are represented. The gender balance is not as good as we would like. 64% of UNV volunteers are male, and 36% are women. A lot of that has to do with the demand in special operations and the types of countries for deployment for special operations and peacekeeping, peace building, which tends to be a little less attractive for our women volunteers. Doesn't mean you can't be. Please do join, but even for special operations. But it just tends to be a little less attractive. So in 2007-2008, there was 7,750 UNV volunteers. 79% of those come from developing countries. So it's a South-South exchange. And it is really developing capacity in the South with people from the South. 34% of those volunteered within their own countries. They know the country the best. They know the culture the best. They know the language. But we also obviously have volunteers from the North. The majority of volunteers are serving in Africa. It's about 45% to 50% of UNV volunteers are serving in Africa. The next largest will be Latin America and the Caribbean, followed by Asia, the Pacific, Arab states, and Europe and Central Eastern Europe. But if you can't go on site, you can go online. And Elizabeth talked about that a few minutes ago. It's a free service that we offer. It's totally funded by Irish Aid. And it's a free service we offer to the community. So any UN organization, any non-government organization, civil society organization, non-profit organization can register. They go online, and if you go to www.onlinevolunteering.org, you will see that on the homepage you can enter as an organization looking for volunteers, where you can post assignments, or you can enter as someone wanting to do an online assignment. Once you enter that site, you then put in your information as required, and then you will look for jobs that you would like to do, where you have the skills and the ability to do those jobs. So it's from your home, it's from the park, it's from Starbucks, it's wherever you want to work as an online volunteer. It gives people an opportunity to contribute to peace and development without having to leave their home. And we have online volunteers and development